knew him.
You got help. You got help from a Jew. It's fucking crazy.
We're flipping between the Yankees game, the first summer league, and the Sixers are playing.
Right.
And I put it on, and Pierre Jackson tears his Achilles. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I should reach out. I'm like, should I reach out?
Are we ready to go? Yeah. Ready? All right. Daniel Hazan, right? I pronounced the last name correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool, man. So I've heard a lot about you from Ethan. How'd you, were you born in Miami?
No, I was actually born in New York,
Okay.
but moved here during COVID.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you're one of the ones that moved during COVID. That's awesome. You got fed up over there?
Yeah, just business, took me here. So,
Right, because Florida, for what you do, is it a hub? Is it
yeah,
it's the right place to be?
Yeah, well, all my training is here.
Right.
Clients love being here.
Right, and you do mostly MBA?
Only MBA.
Only MBA.
Yeah.
Okay.
MBA.
How'd you get into it?
It's a long story. It's
Yeah.
a very long story. But it starts when I was.
You played basketball or?
I played, but 5'7", Jewish boy.
Yeah.
The chances were very slim of being a professional basketball player in the NBA. So the closest thing to living out my dream in that way was to represent them.
Right.
But I started when I was 18 years old, in college.
You studied sports
in
management or something?
No, I was in business school at the time at Yeshiva University.
Right.
And
what's the name of the university?
Yeshiva.
So it's a Jewish school.
Jewish private school in Washington Heights, New York.
Okay.
But yeah, I was 18 years old at the time in business school, and I started my own advertising business out of my dorm room in college, and then landed on Shark Tank.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And didn't get an investment out of it, but
what was the product?
It was investment. It was advertisements on coffee cups. So 2,000 cafes around the New York area would get coffee cups with ads on it,
right?
For free, and
so you would hand over the coffee cups to the coffee shops.
We had contracts with the mom and pop.
And nobody picked that up. That sounds like a super interesting. Yeah.
It's a super interesting idea, but the reason why it wasn't attractive to the sharks on Shark Tank was because it couldn't be copyright protected. So it was very easy to replicate that. And they felt that the bigger companies would be able to do it on a much larger scale than me. But we signed these coffee stores to contracts, and we were providing them with their cups, and every month would be different brands on it.
Yeah, it's funny about advertising. So obviously, to be in real estate, there is no choice. You have to figure out the marketing part. I mean, that's it's everything really. It's what's 90% of the business almost. So I remember recruiting is a big part of my business. The more agents I have, more money I make. Basically, right? It's a lot more to it, but yeah. So man, I was sending out mail outs to agents, right? So like, hey, come join my company, and I calculated one day, man, by the time I get the envelope, I had to do really nice envelope. By the time I print everything out, it's a fucking $1, right? So I'm like, why don't I just do a simple envelope and I just send them an actual crisp $1, and say just a simple note. This is the first $1 you're gonna make, with my company. I'm like, man, that's the fucking best idea I ever had in my life. Like, I mean, for sure it's gonna work.
Right.
I didn't get anybody out of it.
Wow.
So marketing is weird like that. Sometimes, and sometimes the idea you're not really paying too much attention to is the one that takes off. What I mean? So you and business has always been something that's promoted by your family. How does that work? 'Cause I always talk to Ethan about, like, I'm fascinated by the Jewish culture.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinated by just the fact that education, business is promoted from a young age. Right. It starts at what age? So at what age were you presented? All right, well, sell this, or the concepts of business. Like, when does that start?
Well, yeah, I mean, It's interesting because everyone tells me like we don't know like where you came from because I'm so different from my parents. My mom never worked.
Okay.
My mom was born in Israel. My dad was born in Morocco.
Okay.
My dad was he had to work 3 jobs to to support us, but we never felt like we were ever missing anything. I grew up in Manhattan my whole life.
Yeah.
But we went to I'd go to temple. My dad was the cantor of the synagogue, and you go to temple every week, and we went to the Moroccan synagogue, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of money in there.
Right.
A lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of billionaires.
Right. Regular guys, you don't even just walking around,
but with money,
Yeah.
And you go to temple, and this guy raises his hand. I'll give 30,000. I'll donate 30. This guy, I'll donate 50. And every week, these guys are coming in, and they're just giving and giving and giving. And, I was like, okay, this guy's giving and he's wearing, that Hermes belt. Okay, I'm trying to be like that one day. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be that guy that's able to give back to the community. So that already sparked my, my interest. And once I got to high school, I started, I opened up my own hot dog stand. It was called Hazan's Weenies. I used to sell hot dogs. I used to sell hot dogs during the hockey games,
right.
And I used to sell tickets to, go to the first, under 18 clubs. Like I was selling tickets to Knick games. I was selling memorabilia. Like I was just trying to always figure out a way to, hustle. I was teaching kids Hebrew. So that was just always like
it was always in
me.
you.
Yeah.
Right.
But my mom's priority for me was always education.
Yeah.
And that's why I pursued business school and then law school afterwards.
It's funny because I guess it's very similar in my case too, where I just always I played basketball my whole life, right? I later on transitioned. My love is martial arts and MMA and all that stuff like that. But my whole childhood was just basketball. So at that point, a kid from the trailer park, we came to this country on a shrimp boat, you know what I mean, and grew up extremely poor. And at that point, I was like, oh, well, basketball is going to be the thing. But the second, I just wanted to have more. Like I wanted to have just what I wanted. You know what I mean? And my parents did a really good job of like not putting limits on, like, hey, they always told me you could do whatever you want. You know what I mean? But it's from what I'm gathering, in your case, it was like the culture, it was the environment you were in. You were like, man, these guys could do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like I can do it. You know. So it's interesting, man. So, but as far as in your household, business wasn't really promoted. It was just something that was born.
But it was always,
inside of you.
but it was always around me, right? So
yeah,
that was a priority. For my parents, being a first generation American, coming to America in itself is a success. But my parents weren't really driven in the sense of like money was at all like a priority.
Right.
So for me, it was just something that I guess it was innate in me.
And with the whole basketball and agent thing, it was like, well, your love of business and your love of basketball kind of came together.
I sold my advertising business, to the CEO of Dun & Bradstreet, and and I was kind of I was 19 years old, having invested every second of the last 2 years into a business, and then now the business is not in my control anymore, and I have nothing to do with it. So what do I do now? I just felt empty. Like, do I just go back to being a kid again? Like, and I just wasn't willing to accept that. So I started. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna become an agent. But I didn't finish college yet, so I wasn't able to be certified. So I had to think of a creative way to force the NBA to give me certification.
Right.
And put them in a position where I had to get certification. So I started signing players that I thought were good. They were ultimately really bad.
Okay.
And then I went to the NBA and said, listen, I have five or seven players that, are represented by me. I need to become certified. So
is that the way it works? You have to go to the NBA and get certified?
No, the rules are different, but at the time, you had to have a college degree and you had to show that you have negotiated. So
so not just some Joe Schmo comes from the street or what?
No, yeah. So that
makes sense.
At the time, Jay-Z and I were the only agents that never finished college when they got their NBA license. I just, I sold the league on the fact that, you got to make sure these players have, legal representation, and I needed to be certified. And I also sold them on the fact that I was able to sell my business to,
Sure. Hey,
CEO
I'm a
Tony
businessman.
Bradstreet.
Yeah, I'm gonna be able to do
So I'm gonna be able to do
do a
it.
good job
So
for these guys.
I signed my first play in the NBA when I was 20 years old. I'm the youngest to
crazy.
ever do it,
That's crazy.
and
Youngest agent ever.
youngest agent ever to ever sign a play in the NBA.
Super cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But what? Tell me a little bit about. I mean, what side of the road are you on as far as Nil's concerned? I'm assuming I know the answer, but like the NIL stuff, like what do you think that's going to do for sports? I mean, where do you fall in line? I mean, as far as that.
It's a great question. You'll actually be surprised. I'm happy for the players, but
Right.
in the long run, I don't think it's good for the players.
Why?
Because you see a lot of players that are earning a lot of money now, and it's forcing them to stay in college, and they're only looking at the short-term money that they're receiving now. But at the end of the day, they finished their college career, and you were making $100,000, $200,000, $1 million in college, and now you have to start your professional career, and you might be making $100,000 a year. So
So they're more valuable in college than
correct.
professional.
Correct. Yes, because at the end of the day, you have thousands of athletes
Right.
that are supported by really wealthy colleges that have a ton of money.
The donors are
Right.
overpaying.
Right, they're
For the sake
overpaying,
of-
right? Because they're trying to put a monster team together, and they're making a ton of money, right? They're actually profitable.
Wow, so it's a step. The NBA in some cases now will be a step down.
It's not a step. You said the NBA.
Right. Oh,
Imagine you have 6,000 athletes,
Right.
and only 60 make it to the
correct.
NBA.
We're talking about all
So
over the
that,
world.
the 1% is good,
Right.
but everywhere else around the world, if you're playing in the NBA G League, you're making $35,000 a year. And then if you're going to these teams in Europe or anywhere around the world, these are non-profitable organizations that are run by, wealthy individuals, and their budgets are nowhere near a profitable college.
Got it.
So, kids are staying in longer when they should be coming out and starting their professional career, because that in the long term is actually better for them. But they stay because they have the short-term money that's coming in from colleges. And so I'm happy that the athletes are making money, but at the end of the day, a lot of kids are making wrong decisions and are being misled because of the short-term dollar, and in the long run, it hurts them.
Yeah. So I've been like I said, I basketball is my love. Growing up, and I transferred my love to MMA. But I've been YouTube kind of gets you into things a little bit. It starts getting in your algorithm, and you start seeing stuff. One thing I've noticed is the amount of European players now. I mean, it's drastically higher than it was before. Is it fair to say the Europeans are taking over the NBA? I mean, are we there yet? Can we say that, or?
Well, I mean, the last time a U.S. player has won MVP in the NBA was in 2017 with James Harden. So the last 7 MVPs in the NBA, have been, non-American players. It just comes to show the growth of the NBA, and the NBA has done a fantastic job of really making it a global sport. And
But is it also the culture here, as far as maybe Europeans are more drilling, less playing? Something like that. Is there any of that? That's happening, do you think? Or?
No, I mean, just at the end of the day, like, there's talent all over the world, right? And it's impossible to think that, the United States is the only place where there's talent. The only thing is that the sport has grown. And as of the result of the sport growing, now kids are starting to play the game,
Right.
and are playing at a young age. And now you're starting to see players that are coming out. Obviously, the European, talent and the style of play, they're very big on playing the game the right way.
More fundamental.
A lot more fundamentals.
But don't they spend more time also worrying about the fundamentals? Instead of jumping into an AAU league and playing 1,000 games, a year, that has to do something with it.
It's the style more than anything else, right? Because the NBA is and AAU and all that stuff. It's all ISO. It's all based off of pure talent, pure capabilities. Versus in Europe, there's a system and there's a style, and that style overall just brings to a higher level of IQ and overall better success once they reach it to high levels.
Interesting. Tell me a little bit about what's your thoughts on what's going on in Israel right now. Is that something you're good with talking about, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Israeli American, and I just 48 hours ago, there was, 10 drones that hit my, the city where all my family lives. I'll just say this, it's a really unfortunate situation for both sides. No one wants to see any innocent people, being in harm's way. I remember in 2006 during the, Lebanon-Israel war, I was, hidden under bunkers myself. I spent my whole summer in bunkers the whole time. And I remember at a young age, how long was that? 2006, so 18 years ago. I was, about like, 14 years old or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry to say it's on a podcast, but like, I
This is a podcast. You can say whatever you want, so please.
I shat my pants from being so nervous.
Yeah.
When you
literally,
just from hearing the boom.
Yeah, that whole saying, "Oh, I shit my pants," that's like an actual thing. Like people piss and shit themselves when they're when they're extremely scared. That's like a thing.
So
it's not a saying. That just come out of nowhere.
Those are like those are traumatic experience. That was a traumatic experience for me. That like, you don't really know what it's like until you're actually in that kind of situation. And
right, when you're more sure that you're going to die than you're going to live.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and you find yourself almost there. You know what I mean? I had a similar situation, nowhere near in comparison, but I'm a pilot, so dude, I flew into a storm one time, and man, I was positive I was going to die.
Right,
like it was just like I literally got off the plane and I kissed the ground because when I flew into it, it was open, and then here in Florida, these storms kind of close, pretty fast. So all of a sudden, I'm in a donut. I'm in the middle. It's flying. Nowadays with these GPSs and shit, it's like a fucking video game. You know what I mean? So it's a little plane, and it has all the weather around me. I'm in a circle, and I had to fly. I had no choice. I had to fly through the storm. And dude, it was not everybody has felt. It's weird to say, but you feel more alive than you've ever. Even though you think you're gonna die, you feel more alive than you've ever. Like it's like, my God, I'm alive. I'm just happy to be alive. Yeah. It's a weird feeling,
your level of engagement is just so high in those moments.
Yeah, so adrenaline's pumping. Your mind is clear. You're thinking of every detail. You turn into somebody else. Really, the focus is there in the whole situation. So, why do you think so? What is it in the culture, in the Jewish culture, that I think last time I checked, 44% of billionaires are Jewish. What is it, and what do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I get it. Really often. It starts number one with keeping everything within the culture.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I'm getting a haircut, he's going to be Jewish.
Right.
If a lot of times, if you own a company, you're going to hire your employees. Right. If you're going through financial crisis, you're going to find someone in the community to help you. If you're going to donate, you're going to donate within the community.
Right.
When you're successful, you're revered. It's just a camaraderie as a unit, because we've gone through so much as a people
for thousands of years.
That, right. We are just going to keep everything within. And so when the money is within, throughout, it allows for a lot more growth. And
when you're a lot more frugal, because I also think it comes from that culture comes from thousands of years, because you're saving your money because you don't know when you're going to have to leave.
Right.
And go somewhere else. And I think it definitely, the whole culture has been from thousands of years of just having to go from place to place and being persecuted for this and chased for that and killed and the whole situation. So it's an interesting. I mean, what Jews are now? Less than 10% of the population, or not less than 5% of the population?
0.001.
No,
or
way
0.002.
And 44% of the billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, we're really talking about 20 million Jews around the world.
Around the world.
Yeah.
I was just thinking United States, right? No, talking about the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the culture is save money, not really flashy, right? You're probably a little different because you're different. In a business where you gotta be a little flashy, right? Exactly. You know what I mean? So, but in general, driving regular cars, dressing regular, flashiness is really looked down on.
Depends on the community, but
right.
It's
in
just,
general,
it's just not what we're about. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because when you start being flashy, that's when you start drawing attention. That's when when we always had problems.
Right. Correct. Right. As a culture.
As a culture.
Just
Just stay out
live
the way.
under the radar.
Stay out the way.
Stay out of the way. Don't make any noise. And that's just thousands and thousands of years. And I also think it's like thousands of years of, I don't know, country A, country B, both areas get attacked for, X, Y reason. Now this particular woman meets this particular man, got away, right? Selective, and they have a kid. So it's the craftier, smarter, for thousands and thousands of years. Am I crazy thinking that too?
That's what it really, that's what it really was. For, the Jews in Morocco, because I'm 100% Moroccan. All four of my grandparents are from Morocco. It was a little different in Morocco. Morocco was, the king loved the Jews. The closest people to the king were all Jewish. All his advisors are Jewish now. Even the current king of Morocco now, he put the ghetto, the Jewish community, attached to his palace in every city. Right. So the king has a palace in every city, and the Jewish ghetto was always connected to. He always wanted to keep the Jews close to him. Right. He felt that was really important. Even the previous king.
I kind of do the same thing in areas I move into, because I know if the Jews are there, I don't got to worry about shit. Things get taken care of. I don't got to. If that's broken, somebody's gonna complain about that. I don't got to worry about it. So I've lived in Bal Harbor, I've lived in Pinecrest, I lived in Palmetto Bay. Believe it or not, there's a ton of Jews there too. So it's interesting. So.
Yeah. So the king always protected the Jews, but the Jews, at a certain point, like over the last 50 years, felt like, it was not the place for them to be. And now they all moved out. So, that's just how
so you're talking about the King of Morocco in particular,
specifically just because, that's where my family's from. So, I'm informed on that.
Right. Well, what's your goals in the business? Is it based on top athletes, the most amount of athletes? How does that work? Like what are the goals?
It's quality over quantity.
Right.
When you start, it's interesting how, over the 12 years that I've been an agent, how, my goals and the process of success has changed. You start adapting. Your pitch starts changing too. At the beginning it was like, I'm the young guy, I'm the hungry guy, I'm gonna work the hardest. We're the same age, like.
Let me tell you, it has to have. I don't care how smart you are. It must have been extremely difficult to sell yourself as a fucking 20-year-old.
Oh yeah, it was.
It was, because in my business, it was extremely difficult, and it's nowhere. Now you're dealing with, tons of money. I was just trying to sell a house,
right.
At 19, 20. You know what I mean? So it has to have been extremely difficult.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. It's you go through those moments where you're ready to throw your hands up and just be like, what do I have to do? And there's so many players that are in the NBA now that knew me when I was 20 years old, and I was recruiting them, and it's just, it didn't work out, obviously. Because
how old are you now?
I'm 32.
32. So you've been doing this 12 years.
Yeah. So, it's interesting how everything adapts. And you go from just being that guy that's like, hey, I'm hungry, I'll work the hardest, I'll do X, Y, and Z. And you're just trying to accumulate players. And then,
but you don't have any clients. Exactly. That's why I'm going to work the hardest for you.
Right.
I want to wake up in the morning. You're my only focus.
Right.
But you work through that part first.
Yeah, but you haven't done shit. Like who are you? Like you
take it till you make it.
You can't even like I'll never forget it. Like I had one person.
Who's the guy who gave you a shot? Like who's the one that you're like, dude, thank God this guy gave me that.
Elijah Millsap, my first client ever. I don't know why the hell this guy signed with me.
Right.
I'll never forget it in my entire life. We brought him to New York. We flew him to New York. From Atlanta to New York, we flew him with a layover in Charlotte. I'll never forget it in my life. And I would never do that today in my life. Flew him on a layover. He landed. We didn't have enough money to put him in a hotel. So we put him in an apartment in Larchmont, New York.
A buddy's apartment or something?
A buddy's apartment with no shower curtain, no bed, and no TV. We bought a TV, and we put it against the pillow. And we forgot about the shower curtain.
Right.
And we put him in.
So did he call you and be like, "Hey, dude, there's no shower curtain here"?
He never said anything. Like we just.
Have you ever talked to him after and be like, "Hey, what happened?"
I don't know. I should though, but
shit, I'm curious.
He ended up. I'll never forget it. We took him to. I'll never forget. We took him to One Oak that night. look, it was a really popular club. I don't even know how we got in, but we got in, and he wanted a table. I never paid for a table in my life. I didn't know what a table was.
You're like, yeah, sure, table.
I got
didn't know it was like
the bill.
$1,000.
I got the bill. It was $1,000.
Yeah.
It was more than $1,000, and I couldn't pay for it. I didn't have money to pay for it. So I'll never forget. I spent like 30 or 40 minutes at the club on the bank trying to figure out how to pay for the bill. And he was so pissed. It was literally out of a movie. He was so pissed that like we kind of like embarrassed him in that way that he ended up walking out, and he made a left, and to the left there was it was pouring outside, and there was a basketball court, and there was like a basketball with like that's like barely inflated, and he starts shooting in the pouring rain, and I was like rebounding from it. It was like a fucking movie, and he's like,
dude, sounds like a fucking movie.
And he was like cursing me out and shit, whatever. And
telling you what exactly?
Yeah.
Like, dude, you embarrassed me.
He's like, bro, like, why would you tell me I could, to get a bottle, and you have me standing over here in front of all these people, blah blah blah. And
what do you tell him?
Because the lights came on and everything. I was like, nah, bro.
The lights came on.
The lights came on, bro. And
it's like the music stopped too.
We still.
Don't tell me the music stopped.
Yeah, we didn't. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. We still haven't figured out how we're gonna pay this bill. But he ended up signing with us.
How? Why? Though? Like, you have any idea why?
I have no idea. And the guy, had never played in the NBA, and we signed him in the NBA. It was which is in itself is a crazy story of how we signed him. But I mean, I'll just give you a
I want to hear it.
5-second snippet.
Give me the 5-minute one. Yeah.
I mean, the one of the Jewish synagogue attendees was Mark Lastry. He had bought the Milwaukee Bucks, and bought the Milwaukee Bucks at the time, and knew.
So you got help. You got help from a Jew.
And there we go. And that's
fucking crazy.
You gotta start. You gotta start the sports agency. Here we go. We're gonna take him and put him on the team. So.
Right.
He
literally. So that's another guy who gave you a big shot, right?
Yeah.
So both of those guys.
I've had a lot of big shots. Yeah. But in order for him to even get to that point, he had to get into NBA Summer League, and I only had one contact with one team. It was the Philadelphia 76ers. It was the only contact I had around the league. So that was the only team I could call. So it's
not now that you can pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, now I could call everyone, but at the time I could only call him. The assistant GM of the Sixers. So I called him and I said, listen, I have this player. His name's Elijah Millsap, and we want to put him on NBA Summer League. He's like, I'm kind of interested, but, connect with me after the draft. The draft that year, they had a record 7 draft picks. This was during their time of rebuild. They called it the process. They had 7 draft picks. I remember Elijah was with me. We watched the draft. We had this expectation, and I was convinced I was going to put him on the Summer League team. The draft comes, they draft 7 players, and they call me, and they're like, I'm sorry, but we don't have any space. 7 players, and Summer League roster is going to be tough. Blah blah blah. So I'm really down on myself. He's in Atlanta. I'm doing my thing, and
you're thinking it's not going to happen at this point.
It's done.
Right.
It's done. They said no.
Right.
But there was 2 summer leagues at the time. The one in Las Vegas, which was like the really popular one, and then they had one in Orlando. And so I'm sitting, I'll never forget, I'm at my friend's house. We're flipping between the Yankees game and the first summer league, and the Sixers are playing.
Right.
And I put it on, and Pierre Jackson tears his Achilles. As I'm watching it, he tears his Achilles.
Which is the same position as Elijah.
Different position, but he tears his Achilles in the game.
Right.
So I'm like, oh my God, maybe I should reach out. So I'm thinking, damn. I'm like, should I reach out? And be like, I'm so sorry your grandmother passed away.
Right.
But is she selling the house?
Right.
So
they're selling our funeral plot.
Yeah. So I reach out. I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry to hear about Pierre Jackson, but does that open up a spot now? So he's like, I don't know. He responds back. He says, I'm not sure, but I'll let you know. And then the next day, they called me. He joined the team.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, if you don't make that call, you're not in his
brain.
If
I don't make that call, then
you're not in his brain. The next day in the morning, he's still thinking.
If I never make that call, if I never
there's no such thing as luck and success, guys. You got to have the balls to make that call. That's not an easy call to make, especially when you're just starting. You don't really know anybody. You know what I mean? Like, there's no such thing as luck, man.
I'm telling you right now, if I don't make that call, I'm not in this. I'm not here right now.
You're not here right now.
No shine.
Period. No,
I'm not here. It's over.
Right.
It's over.
Yeah.
And he goes, and then, the player that was playing ahead of him I'll never forget, Jordan McRae sprains his ankle. Elijah comes in. He sets a summer league record, 7 steals in a game, and
boom,
we're
we're off and running.
What's the joy when you're watching that game and he's getting the steals and you're like, dude, this is my fucking guy.
So you know,
like I cannot. Like, what is there?
So imagine I'm 20 years old.
Like, oh my God, it's happening.
I'm 20 years old. I'm sitting directly behind the bench.
Right.
And you have to look at the highlights. I'm literally shooting up and I'm screaming and I'm
emotion like you've never felt before.
Just crazy emotions, you know. Yeah. And my partner is pulling my arm down, like, dude, don't forget you're an agent now. Like you can't be. You know, today when I see my players are dropping 25 and I'm
you got to belong.
I'm you know, cool, calm, and collected. You know, I was acting a fool. I mean, but I was living out my dream at the highest level at that moment.
Yeah. What's a time where, like, it seems like it was kind of related to that story there, but was there a time you went to sleep and you're like, fuck, dude, I hit it out of the park with this marketing shit, you know what I mean? And now I'm here, like, dude, is this for me? Like was there a time that you were like, woke up about to quit? I mean, went to sleep about to quit and maybe woke up not quit, you know what I mean? Is there anything?
Yeah, there's probably about like 3 people who have like known me at the lowest level, and I'll save that for when I write my book one day.
Okay.
Because, you know, I still gotta maintain a certain image that I've carried through and through my career.
Was there crying involved?
No, not crying involved, but there's been some very, very low moments in my life, and it's been for a very short period of time. But you know, I was able to battle through adversity and get through that. But I never gave up on what I was going to do. I was going to do this to the end, and the reason why is because I truly say this, like, what I do is not for the money. I do it because I love it so much.
Yeah, the money's a byproduct of what you do.
I would do this no matter what, you know. And if I had to do this and deliver groceries at the same time in order to live out my dream, like, I would do it. And so, you know, that's why I think I've just always stayed focused on that.
And it's funny because, you know, again, I started my business, you know, pretty much around the same age where you were involved in this, and I remember people telling me, so when I started my real estate company, I started a mortgage company, but I had never done a fucking loan in my life. Like, you know, and I remember people telling me, dude, you can't do that. Like, if you've never done, like, you got to learn, you got to be years in the business before you start a fucking mortgage company, you know? And I'm like, oh, those negative motherfuckers, you know, like, dude, they just want me to fail. And I'm like, dude, I'm doing it. And I did. I started a real estate company, started a mortgage company. But I look back now and I'm like, dude, those people were not giving me bad advice. They were not being negative. They were right. You know, like, you don't do that. Yeah, like, it's crazy.
But you got that from people. Imagine I was getting that from my parents, you know, first generation American. You know, it's very simple. It was, you go to school, you go to law school, you come out and you start working for a company, you know, and this was the dream and this is how it was going to be. So, you know, for me to break off and say, I'm not doing that, I'm going to do my own thing, was a very difficult pill for my mom specifically to swallow, you know? And was that bad advice on her end? No, but, you know, I dreamed big, you know, and I had big aspirations for myself, and I wanted to control my destiny, and I believed I could do what I could do. So.
Right, but there was, you know, now, so on the other token, I didn't get much of an answer for you on the lowest point. So when was the time when you were like, and I know, you know, listen, as an entrepreneur and with high goals, I know you never really make it, you know, and that's, I tell people all the time, like, this ambition shit, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm glad I was born with it and the whole situation, but it's also a fucking curse because you're never satisfied. Like, I just hit this goal. Like, why don't I go to, you know, and I'm like, man, like, why can't I just stop and smell the roses a little bit? Yeah. Like, if it dawned on me the other day where the area where, as a kid, the area where I'm like, wow, I hope I live there one day right now, I probably really wouldn't want to live there now at all, right? Like, that was like, if I have this house with this, you know, so your goals continue to go up and continue to go up and continue to go up, but you're like, man, fucking hey, like, when is this gonna end? So, you know, but so saying that being said, was there a point, because I've had it, you know, where I'm like, all right, you know, I don't know if I made it, but man, like, wow, this is cool. You know what I mean? Is there a point where you're like, damn, dude, like, this is real. Yeah. There's no going back right now. I'm here. I've arrived to a certain extent. I'm not where I want to be, but I've arrived. Is there
you know, there's many milestones where you have that moment where you sit back and you
Like the guy you signed, maybe,
where,
or
like, you know, like I hit my partner on the arm and I'm like, you know, or I give him a big hug and I'm like, wow,
dude, I can't believe we're here.
Yeah, so like, you know, my first ever draft pick, you know, Quindary Weatherspoon, he was drafted 49th overall. And I'll never forget that moment. I mean, there's clips of it all over YouTube, you know, just like the emotions, the hug, the excitement. You know, even this past year, you know, I had Malik Beasley, NBA All-Star Weekend 3-point contest. And, you know, you're just in the back with everybody and you're just like, or, you know, or even on a regular game, you know, after the game, you're just chilling with LeBron. He's walking out in the, you know, in the area, you know, in the locker room area. And you're just like, bro, like, how is little
The
Daniel,
hell am I? It's called an imposter syndrome. Like, what the fuck am I doing
little
here?
Daniel Hazan, like,
Yeah.
you know, here. When LeBron broke the record for most points in NBA history, it was against one of my clients, Trey Mann. And, like, I was there for shoot around and I saw whatever. And, you know, I even have a frame in my house, like, with like, you know, the shirt that they gave after the game with my credential with my name on it. And I'm just like, how is little Daniel Hazan that used to, like, chase these players down the block? Like, how is he, like here?
I'm here. I'm
like
one. I'm a peer. I'm not, you know, I'm one of them. You know what I mean? So as an agent, so what makes a good agent, right? You know, there's this saying my buddy Mark always says, a good attorney knows the law, a great attorney knows the judge. You know what I mean? But like, what makes what separates a average or good or good agent from the great? Is it picking out talent? Like, can you see a kid, you know, in high school and be like, that's the guy?
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
like,
that for
like,
sure. I mean,
right. Like there's so you're almost a very high paid scout, almost, right? I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, my job isn't to pick the player, right? So let's just start with the fact that I picked the player.
right.
So, you know, you pick the player and, you know, normally, you know, the basic agent, your job is to negotiate the deal, you know? And, you know, people always tell me, but Daniel, you do too much and you're so involved and you're too ingrained. And in my opinion, what makes a great agent is really from the moment you have him to be able to get him to that contract, right? The process. And that process includes skill and development. So, you know,
So you are, hold on. So let me make sure I understand this. So you might get a college player and be like, hey man, that guy, if I could just get his shot better.
Exactly.
I mean, are you getting as detailed as his elbows a little bit out on his shot? I mean, are you getting that detailed?
Yeah,
like literally?
Literally, yeah. Right.
Holy
so
shit.
we're gonna work on his, you know, okay, so this guy, he's got to gain a certain amount of muscle mass. This guy, okay, well, you know, this is an injury prone guy. His knees, we have an issue over here with cartilage, etc. What are we gonna do to address it?
So you're also a doctor,
right?
Almost.
So yeah, I mean, so we're gonna work on his body. We're gonna work on his mechanics, right?
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm like, so you have to.
I don't have to, right?
No, right.
My job is to negotiate the deal.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Right.
But you're giving me the difference between good and great.
If I want to be great, this is what I do. So I'm gonna do that, right? Make sure I make him the best basketball player he could be, right? That's why he's in Miami. That's why after this podcast, I have 6 players that are gonna be training, and we're working on shit with every single one of them.
Right.
Okay. So that's step number 1. Then step number 2 is, how am I going to organize his finances to a point where he's going to be able to turn this into generational wealth so that he could come out of this basketball shit with something.
Correct.
Right? Unlike,
what's the stat now? What percentage?
95% go broke after 5 years. Okay. So how do we get him to not be that 95% and put him in that 5% threshold?
I mean, but do you explain the Jewish culture and you got to have a smaller car and you got to, I mean, how far do you go into this?
I've had a lot of players who have signed me because I'm Jewish.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll say it like that. So then once we, you know, we
sell that Ferrari and get a Ford F-150.
Once we work on that, you know, now it's like, okay, how can we keep the player's nose clean, you know, through and through, and that until we get to this contract or throughout his career, right? Like, you know, avoiding any sort of trouble. So that means cleaning out your crew, cleaning out the people you're hanging out with.
Interesting.
Right? You know, so, and making sure you understand, hey, if you're going out at night, you know, you're not driving the car on the way back. And if you are driving the car and you're getting pulled over, your friend is jumping in and right? Because you are the breadwinner. You're the one that's supporting everyone over here. So, you know, you're the most important commodity in the group.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to rewind a little bit, because what I'm definitely want to go back to that because I'm fascinated by that, right? But what I'm really fascinated by is the fact that you played a little bit of basketball, right? I mean, very little. I mean, it's rec ball, right? And you can see a kid, right? So something none of these guys know even. I was Carlos Boozer's shooting coach. So I was a shooting coach for Carlos Boozer's shooting coach as growing up. So I understand the mechanics of a perfect shot.
Yeah.
Almost as much as I understand real estate. I just got it as a kid. I was a shooting guard. I just was nowhere near as similar. I wasn't nowhere near as athletic, but I was, as far as shooting mechanics. So the fact that you're able to, as an agent, pick a kid and be like, man, if I can get that kid is good right now, if I get him with the right shooting coach or if I get him with the right strength and conditioning coach, right? Like I can make him great.
Correct.
He could be from a 59 draft to a 10.
Correct.
Right. So how does that happen? Like, where do you? I mean, you're just obsessed with basketball and you're watching. Are you watching mechanics videos?
I mean, first of all, it comes with a lot of experience and a lot of time, right? The more you spend, in the gym, working, watching trainers, watching, your off-court trainers. I can assess a guy's body and know where we're at. I can know what an injury. I could hear an injury, a player describe an injury and know what it is. It's not because I'm a doctor and I've studied it. I've just been around.
Part of your business.
I'm around it every single day. I have my trainers, at DBC, Elise, and others, that.
You have your crew.
I have my crew that have taught me so much that right now I can assess it. And then from the basketball
side. You got a ball handling guy. You got a shooting guy. What does your team look like?
Yeah, I mean, so, we have like our trainers, our on-court trainers who are great. And then our off-court trainers, who do the rehab, who work on the body, who work on biomechanics. We have our doctors.
Sports psychology?
Sports psychology is like a huge one, especially in today's climate.
Yeah. What do you mean by especially today's climate?
Like life has been, has brought a lot of challenges to a lot of people, and we talk about COVID, we talk about, the climate around the world and the unrest around the world, has, challenged a lot of people mentally. And so, it's, for the regular guys like us.
Because there's psychology and there's sports psychology.
Exactly.
Right?
For the regular guys like us, there's difficulty. And then the mental side of it. And I actually want to tell you a great story about this. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I was in New York and I played the first organized basketball I've played since I was in high school.
How'd you do?
And so I'll tell you a great story. So there was 7 players. I was invited an hour before to come join and play in a basketball game. And obviously I'm the second worst player on the team. Everyone is
there was somebody worse than you?
There was one worse than me.
Who's that guy?
He was completely out of shape. And then it was me, and then it was all like 6'8".
He was in a wheelchair or something?
Former basketball players. Yeah, exactly. Former basketball players, college players, whatever. And let me tell you something. I sat on the bench for the first 10 minutes, and it was the most miserable 10 minutes of my entire life. I sat on the bench and I was pissed, and my mood was low and my attitude was bad. And in that moment, I started thinking about all my players when they complain about not playing.
Oh, you were pissed because you weren't in the game?
I wasn't in the game.
Yeah,
I'm pissed.
Size of the balls on
I'm
this guy.
pissed. I'm not in the game. I'm pissed. I'm not in the game. And I'm so upset that I'm not in the game, and I'm so down. And I'm thinking about all my clients when they always complain to me about them not playing and how difficult it was, and the mental challenge of sitting through a game and believing that you're good enough to play and help the team, but the coach is not giving you that opportunity. And I'm sitting and experiencing that for 10 minutes in a rec league game when I am
the worst.
Those players wish I was their agent.
Right.
Those players. I had a player come up to me. He's like, "Are you?" He's like, "Do you work for Hazan Sports?" And I'm so pissed. I'm like, "I'm him.
I am Hazan.
I'm him. I am Hazan Sports." Okay. And in that moment, it was just like, wow, the mental fortitude that my players go through on a day-to-day basis, of the uncertainty that they have is something very commendable.
So I have 2 athlete kids, right? I got my son's a wrestler, ranked number 1 in the country right now. My daughter is a tennis player. She's on her way up. Right? If people only understood what it takes to be an athlete, it should be the most respected I mean, the hours and hours and hours of practice and sacrifice, you know, as a kid, you're not going to birthday parties. You're where, you know, kids are going to summer camp. I mean, you know, my son leaves tomorrow to Pennsylvania for fucking 10 days of grueling 6, 7, 8 hour practices. My daughter's at practice right now in the fucking sun, you know what I mean? But all of that, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because none of that matters. The hard work doesn't matter for shit. If your head's not screwed on tight, and I'm sure you have those guys that are like, look how talented this guy is.
80% mental, 20% talent.
Dude, like the guy, you're like, look how talented the guy, but he can't get out of his own way. He
All
doesn't believe in himself, right? He doesn't understand the breathing exercises, the positive affirmation.
So, you know, for me, I came from right, the Jewish culture, you know, Manhattan boy, this, that, and the third, right? So I'm sure you can imagine how difficult for me it was to understand these players.
Yeah.
You're getting in trouble, you know, because of marijuana or because of whatever, you know, stupidity that you're getting yourself caught into. And I'm sitting there as an agent, I'm like, I cannot understand why you're in this situation. You're at the highest level, you know, you're playing in the NBA and you get cut because of stupidity from an NBA roster, from a team that just won an NBA championship.
For holding a gun,
right? Right. So, you know, there was this disconnect between myself and the players for a very long time.
Couldn't get it.
I couldn't get
fathom what the hell are you doing?
The moment I got it was when I went to where these players grew up and I understood everything. They don't know any better. This is how they grew up.
Yeah.
What's normalcy for us, what they're doing was normalcy for them. And the moment as an agent you're able to understand that this is all they know, then you have a better understanding of how to approach
it's a cultural
them changing
thing.
it.
It's a cultural thing. You know, I was getting a haircut yesterday, and I was with my son getting a haircut yesterday, and I'm watching a rap video, and there's fucking kids in a van with machine guns, right? And like, that's what we're feeding this youth.
Yeah.
Right? You're not a drug dealer, you're not an athlete, you're not this, you're not gonna make, and then you're holding a gun is cool.
Yeah.
Wearing your entire net worth on your neck.
Yeah.
Or in your car, right? And it happens with the Cubans too. I mean, the Cubans are fucking. I mean, it came out on in the other day, like a fucking Maserati or so, out of some really expensive car in front of like a duplex or a mobile home park or something like that, and it happens, and it's a cultural thing, and we deal with it in the Hispanic community too. Right? It's like, you know, I read a book, The Millionaire Next Door. You read that book before?
No.
So it's all about the study and the psychology of, you know, millionaires, billionaires, and everything like that, and you know what makes them tick. And you know, one thing that, man, it just totally changed. And I read that early, right out of high school. I read it, and the most popular car for millionaires, and this is them studying IRS returns and the whole situation, is a Ford F-150, right? Not a fucking Ferrari. And I remember the impact that had on me. But like, why is it not a fucking Ferrari, right? It's not a Ferrari because this money you save from fucking buying an F-150 to a Ferrari, if you put it in there at a 5% compounded monthly.
4% is fine too.
Compounded
4%
monthly
is fine too.
4% compounded monthly for the next whatever, that turns into millions of dollars.
That's 15 Ferraris.
So it's not about don't get a Ferrari. It's like, don't get it now. Save that money. So how do you deal? And again, I deal with it. Look at Miami, the fucking South Americans. I'm telling you, and I went through this crusade of trying to change this. And I'm Cuban, so I'm not really South American. My wife's Venezuelan, she's South American. But the culture is not come here and buy an apartment building or buy an income-producing asset. Is come and buy a $5 million fucking condo in Brickell with a $10,000 a month association, where nothing you're going to do is going to get you to make money on that. There's never going to be a fucking return on that, right? But it's the culture. And I remember like years of like, no, let's have seminars. No, and let me explain. No, look, let me show you what these $5 million are going to do, right? Here's what this is going to do. And this, no.
Right.
I want to go back to Venezuela, and I want to tell all my fucking friends that I have a fucking $5 million condo in Brickell. So similar situation in your case, right? And again, it's almost like you're, listen, I'm aware your job is to get the contract, right? All the other stuff you do is what makes you from good to great, right? But how do you fight that 95% failure rate? How do you explain the culture? Be like, no, that's not like what's that battle like? Because it has to be crazy.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I've succumbed to that culture because now, to a certain degree, I'm now ingrained into how they are.
Right.
You start talking like that, like the players. You start wanting to dress like the players. Right. So I'm going through that challenge every day. But what's really, I've had a very strong personality, and starting at 20 years old, I stopped drinking. I don't drink any alcohol, no wine, beer, or anything like that. And
sorry to hear that.
And I'm sure, for it's very sad. But for me, I had to be able to show that I was mature.
I haven't drank in 24 hours, but
okay. Because I have to be able to show. I have to show
discipline.
I have to show players that I'm different than them in that way. That's why I'm dressed in suits and not in Jordans, because you have to show that there is a line and a difference. I've succumbed to it to a certain degree, but and that's part.
I mean, you're not wearing a do-rag.
I've succumbed to it in the sense where it's like in my business, what attracts the athletes is seeing the car, is taking them out to the nice dinner and doing the
it's weird,
for me,
right.
So for me, in order for me to get my players, it's a business expense. Now,
sure.
Now we sit down and we're talking.
Like, buddy, this is a costume I'm wearing. All right, that's not exactly who I am. Right?
The reason why I don't drive the Ferrari is because that Ferrari money has been sitting in a CD, and I have about 45 CDs right now that are working, aside from the 15 other ventures that we're doing and the treasury bonds and the basic things.
Sure.
The money that you have right now that's sitting in a savings account that's making $3 a year is making me about $80,000 a year. So, once we start educating them on that, they understand.
But it has to be an enormous battle.
It's an enormous battle. We're talking about players that are getting checks of $500,000 a month, biweekly checks of $250, biweekly checks of $125, biweekly checks of $65. And we're fighting the battle of how do we get this player to not spend $65K in 2 weeks?
Right. It's
all the time. And it ticks me off.
And no matter how many Excel sheets you put them in front of and explain.
Excel sheet, it doesn't matter Excel sheets. It's Excel sheets. It's you're controlling his money and it's not in his name and you still can't do it.
Yeah. And how do you stop them from buying from getting the buddy from his neighborhood that wants him to open this fucking business that you absolutely know is not going to make any money? I mean, it's part of that cleaning up process that you mentioned.
Cleaning up process. It's
but you got to expect some certain level of loyalty to their friends and their people that grew up with them and that type of stuff. So how do you? That has to be another.
It's not, because at the end of the day, it's very simple. Not every person is meant to be in your entire journey. Some people are just chapters in your journey. And
that's a really good way to explain it.
And so, there are times, that player makes it to NBA and he's like, hey, you remember the day I drove you to the gym? Oh, you remember the day that I lent you $20?
Right.
Those aren't people that need to be in your next chapter.
Hook them up, take them out to dinner.
Take them out to dinner, you show your respect, you do this and that, and you move on. You have outgrown them. And so, I believe it's that way in relationships. I believe it's that way in business and in life, where, not everyone is meant to be with you in every step of the way. And
but because then you're not real, because you're not hanging out with your buddies from this and that. Well, if my buddy from high school or my buddy from whatever is still, and in my case, it's the potheads, right? Like the guys that, I grew up in the trailer park and they fucking, they started doing drugs and listen, I'm no fucking angel. I've done every drug you can possibly imagine and everything. But dude, I always knew what I wanted to do, and I always knew my business was what's gonna get me there, right? And no, you can't be smoking, but you can't smoke pot every fucking day. Right. If you want to be successful, right? You just can't. Why? Because you get lazy. Why? Because it fucks with your ambition. Why? Because it gets you fucking paranoid. Why? Because it gets you reclusive. It turns you into an intro. I mean, so that's so if the friends that that I have right now are usually people that I met in business, and we've grown together in business.
My friends right now are all either my clients or my business associates. All my friends that I had growing up, they're all great people, but we just weren't on the same level, you know?
Yeah.
You know, they were focused on partying and drinking, whatever. My focus was, you know, building my business and being successful so that when they're trying to figure their shit out, I'm partying with Jay-Z. I'm at the club with Drake. I'm at his birthday. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just.
I've actually partied with Jay-Z. I have a funny story with that. So I did a lot of business with A-Rod and his group, you know, but a lot of real estate deals and stuff like that. And one of his best friends, a manager, and is my childhood friend. He's like my big brother, really growing up. So I get to the airport one day and I'm like, show up to the gate and I'm like, I see my buddy Pepe there and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? It's a flight to London, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? I'm like, I'm going to a real estate convention. He's like, well, I'm going to a Jay-Z concert. You want to come? I'm like, absolutely. So I knew it was going to be VIP, but you don't really like, you know, it's an interesting because so we're in a huge, you know, you're in the middle of the concert and there's a, you know, huge kind of stage situation there. And then, you know, that stage is VIP, right? You got to be able to get in there, but that has another VIP, and that VIP on top has another VIP in the front where it's just really myself, Pepe, Jay-Z's, you know, best friend, and you would think it's like super luxurious, but it's just a cooler with bottles in there, and they're just for us, right? And you're like looking at you're looking at the concert, and then after that we're going to the backstage and smoking, everybody's smoking weed, and it's an interesting. It was a fun, definitely a fun trip to London, but. So, you know, back to, you know, just wrapping up, I know you got to get out of here. So, back to building that staff, right? And you understanding the game. Because again, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm super fascinated by that, right? Like, so how do you pick these coaches, right? Again, because you have to have a certain level. Oh, no, actually, do you purposely go and become better at watch videos on mechanics of basketball? I mean, look, literally you sit down and watch shooting videos, like Pistol Pete shit or something like that. You know?
For me, it's a little different. I'm trying to figure out. So I have a player, for example, that's 6'9". He's struggling shooting the ball. We have athleticism over here, great IQ, his ability to read the game, you know. So now what kind of style, coaching style, play calling is suitable for him? Okay, so
what coach should I put him with?
So I'm thinking, okay, the Lakers, they love running horns chest, boom, boom, boom. You hit the guy at the elbow. This guy sets the screen. So now I'm starting to learn. Okay, what's pistol action? I'm learning actions. I'm learning styles. You know, you right back when Phil Jackson triangle offense and trying to see. Okay, so.
Yeah, but is that just watching games or watching instructionals? Like, are you literally reading books?
I'm watching the game on a different level, right? So like you're going to a game right now and you're watching the ball go in the hole, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what kind of players fit the Warriors system? What are they looking for? Okay, so how do I make another Draymond Green? Okay, this guy, can he be a Draymond Green? Can I make him a Draymond Green? So if I can make him a Draymond Green, okay, then this is a player that is good, and this is what's going to be attractive to the Warriors. Like, based on, you watch a player in a college setting or in a regular gym setting, and you try and figure out what kind of concepts he could fit in and where he could be suitable. And based off of that, let's try and mold him into that so he could fit into this system. Right. So I know, like, when I see a player, I could say, okay, this is a Miami Heat. When we talk about Heat culture, this is a Miami player, right? Like, everyone knows Jimmy Butler is a Miami player. Like, we all know that there are certain players that are Miami players. I could tell you right now, Terry Rozier, who's on the Miami Heat, he's not a Miami player.
Doesn't belong there.
He doesn't belong.
Would do a lot better where?
Anywhere, right? Anywhere else, essentially, but the Heat culture, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at players. I'm saying, okay, where is he fit? Where is he suitable? What is he missing? Now, you have a big man that can't shoot the ball. He's not good anywhere in the NBA. If you can't pick and pop in today's game, right? You look at guys like Jokic, Bam Adebayo. If you can't hit a 16-footer, a 25-footer, you can't fit anywhere. So that's how you start filtering out players, right? Unless you feel like you could change his mechanics and make him a shooter or adapt him into a shooter.
Right.
A lot of colleges have players that can shoot, but they don't show it within the system. So now it's your job to be able to gather more information on the player. Maybe the team doesn't show his ability to shoot, but he actually can shoot, which is what we have. We have a player that was in Kentucky last year that could shoot the piss out the ball, but wasn't able to show it in college. So, there's constant studying, gathering a video.
How far down do you go picking talent? I mean, are you looking at middle school? I know you're not. Okay, what are you allowed to do? Let's put it.
No, I'm allowed to. I at this point we're allowed to.
You're allowed to what? Talk to middle schoolers?
Yeah, I mean, I have relationships with 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds right now.
Right.
I don't like investing a lot of that because I don't have patience anymore. I don't want to sit here and build an 8-year relationship and hope he pans out. There's a lot that could happen in 8 years.
You rather just come in year 7.
I'd rather come in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
Junior year in college.
But you're keeping an eye on them though.
Keeping an eye, definitely always keeping a temperature.
Right.
Keeping a pulse on those guys. But over here, I'm doing my cooking with the college kids. And
what's the best state right now for basketball talent?
Oof. Wow, that's a great question.
If they tell you, dude, you know what? Like, we're going to separate this agent shit into states. We're going to have a draft. Everybody gets to pick a state. What's the first round pick?
Wow, that's great. Give me like 5 seconds to think on that.
I can tell you, I mean, it's very simple. The reason why that means a lot to me because so my son has to travel a lot to Pennsylvania, to Iowa, to everything like that for the wrestling stuff, right? When my daughter, she could stay here locally, and the brackets are international brackets. She'll go to a fucking tournament in Broward, and there's kids from Mexico, from Canada, from Colombia, from Europe, everything. It's crazy. It is the,
Yeah, I would. If I had to pick, I'd probably go with Dallas, Texas.
What? I would have never guessed. I was thinking you're going to say New York. I thought you were going to say the Northeast somewhere.
There's no talent coming out of New York.
Dallas,
all the guys
Texas.
that come out of New York are all hyped up. Dallas, Texas.
Why? Is there like a coach there that's producing them, or
no? Just think right. Like try and think like.
We're talking about high school. I'm talking about like high school producing D1 guys and D1. Right.
Yeah. Think like this. Like, the obviously great schools like Texas Tech, Texas, TCU.
But they're not producing. I'm talking about like AAU teams and like that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean, but think about how big Texas is.
Yeah.
So you have bigger population. Think about.
I didn't even know they were like
the population. What kind of people live?
When I was growing up, it was straight up New York. I mean, it was New York.
New York in your dreams.
Right.
New York right now is awful. There's nothing coming out of New York.
Right.
There's nothing coming out of New York and New Jersey. I mean, the last thing that ever came out of New York was Stephon Marbury and Sebastian Telfair.
Those are like my years kind of.
So those days are.
So Dallas, Texas. Now, is there, because it again, so I'm just kind of translating my world. So there's absolutely pockets in the country where they're badass youth coaches, genius youth coaches.
Florida right now. Florida is breeding them.
What coaches are producing them?
In Orlando right now.
Orlando.
Each one teach one in Orlando is.
Each one teach one.
Is breeding.
How about Miami?
Players.
Anybody who's running it?
You're not really seeing much coming out of Miami, but Orlando is breeding them. But don't forget, the big ones in Orlando, they're pulling everyone from Miami. They're pulling them from Miami. They're pulling them from everywhere.
So they're just recruiting them into their program.
Yeah, because you're a Nike.
And that's a high school program?
Yeah, that's you're a Nike. You're the hottest team. You're on the circuit. You have the most attention. So everyone is coming there. You have them. You have Atlanta is doing a great job.
My buddy Benny Frahela, he's his kids. His older sons with Columbia Knight Riders, and they just moved over to Belen now. So, but what I'm saying is there. Like youth coaches, it doesn't make sense for you to go all the way back and be like, hey, this youth coach has produced to like, dude, this guy, and this guy, and this guy. Like, and those are the relationships. So it's better to make a relationship with those guys.
So what you're thinking about now,
the
top agencies have been doing 15 years before I even became an agent.
Right.
So that you have that challenge of how do I get into a pocket that's been, that has had an emperor in it for 15 years. So, yes, we do. To a certain extent.
So there's coaches out there. You could pick three youth. Look, coaching NBA, coaching college, and coaching youth is totally different.
But those 3 youth coaches can already be in bed with another agency.
Correct.
And I'm already cooked.
Correct.
And more.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how much does that matter for you?
It matters, but you see, to be a successful agent and to make it to the top, right? Like I've had a player in the NBA every year. And there's only about 75 agents that have a player in the NBA. So we're a very small
What?
group.
There's only 75 agents
that have a
in
player,
the world that have one player in the NBA.
Yes, I know. So and right
now, how many do you have?
I have 9. Last year I had 9.
Jesus.
So I was ranked top 30 last year as far as agencies, but just because we're all going for the same fish, there's different avenues to be able to get there. So the avenue you're talking about is going through the AAU programs. Like I have a different avenue of how I get there, and so
I'm talking more like a skill set guy, right? So in my son's sport, I can name 5 guys that have produced the most NCAA champs, right? I mean, because again, that guy probably can't coach, in your world, the NBA, right? Just like the NBA guy does not have the fucking patience to sit down with a kid and teach him the fundamentals. So like, does it make sense to make those relationships that early on with those guys that are producing those talents? How do you? I mean, what do you take care of them? Like,
no, yes,
is it legal to?
Yes, without a doubt. But again, I'm telling you that there are agents that are already controlling those people.
Yeah.
So you now need to figure out a
different. You got to make your own.
You got to create your own AAU program.
Right.
You have to come in at different points. You have to have a different approach. Instead of going after the coaches, you're going after the parents.
Right.
You're going after other people. So but now once these kids get passed on to college, now you build a relationship with the college coach.
So I know you said not that you're not a fan of NIL. You get the good and the bad, right? But if you were leaning towards anything, you were leaning towards it. It does more harm than good. 51-49, let's call it.
For the players, for the players that are actually good, that are going to
for the good of the game.
For the players that are going to actually have a professional career,
right?
It's bad. For the kids that are coming in for the joyride, that are going to work in finance afterwards, it's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Yeah. All right, man. It's been great. I don't know, anything else you want to bring up, or you want to promote?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd probably want to say is just hopefully this is motivational enough for people and for young entrepreneurs around the world to know that they can accomplish their dream.
Yeah, it's there's one thing that, listen, we do stuff about everything, real estate and whatever, but in reality, what I'm most fascinated about is that people don't understand. Like, they see 32-year-old Hazan and like, oh, he's either lucky or he has a rich uncle or he got the answers to the test in some type of way. They don't know the sacrifice, that one call that you probably sat down there with the phone and was like, dude, do I call this guy right after the fucking guy got injured? Like, is that gonna put me on his shit list? Is he gonna hang up on me? Like, dude, what are you calling me now for? You crazy? Like, all of that, and making that call, right? Like, those things, right? And then that you didn't go too much into detail. Maybe one day you'll tell me, but that there has to be every entrepreneur has that dark day. You're like, bro, fuck this, man. This is just crazy. Like this is, maybe it's not for me. Maybe, maybe I'm a marketing guy. I'm not an agent, So those dark days, and everybody has to understand, and every person that's trying to succeed has to understand that there's nobody that hasn't gone through those dark times. There's nobody who hasn't had those failures. And I don't want to sound cliche, but it's not about the failures. It's about, how you handle those failures, right? And there's again, my passion is, the MMA thing and everything. There's a fighter named Holloway. You don't know UFC anything at all, right? It's like, right, it's zero, right? So
painful to watch.
One of the best ever to do it, but super fascinating is he gets interviewed at like 16 years old, right? And he's like, he's just dumbfounded by the fact that he's like, I don't understand. Like, if you fail, but you continue to try, then you're good. You're happy with yourself. You're not a loser. He says it with a Hawaiian accent. He's like, you're not a loser. You just try. And he couldn't fucking understand why people would quit when all you have to do is just continue to try. And then you're not a loser in your mind, then you're happy with yourself. Fucking fascinating how he got it at such a young age.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just feel like, the culture is set up where, people are just comfortable working a 9-to-5 job, paycheck to paycheck, and the things that they look forward to is a happy hour,
Right.
So You know, not everyone is built for it, but if it's something that you want to do, you don't have to be a professional athlete to be an agent. You don't have to
you're all
study.
on what you do.
You just got to give it everything you got. And if you're, and don't spread yourself out too thin. I feel like too many times people want to be, they want to do real estate and they want to work a regular 9-to-5 job and they want to do 5 other things at the same time. Like, people ask me like, why don't you do other sports? I want to be the best at being a basketball agent.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment you start spreading yourself out too thin, you just become average at everything. So, invest your time and energy into one thing, be the best you could possibly be at it, and things will work out.
Last question on the NIL thing, right? Which is super interesting how it's happening right now. Are you involved that far into it? Like, you're getting them NIL deals out of high school?
I've had multiple players that have made over $1 million, that I've done over $1 million in NIL for them in 1 year.
High school?
College.
Is it creeping into high school?
It is, because these players are now going to go from high school to colleges. And so,
right, but I mean, do people start reaching out, throwing that type of money for high school players nowadays?
Yeah.
Millions of dollars.
Not millions, but
right.
But a lot of money.
Who was the first one? Who was the first high schooler to start making that?
NIL's only been around for 2 years.
Right.
So, you really see a lot of the money going to football. Football is like where all
more than NBA?
Well, football as far as college. I mean, those college quarterbacks. Imagine you go to, Alabama, where there's no professional basketball team. University, Alabama's football team is literally like the Lakers. You understand? So the marketing dollars are just through the roof.
And you're sorry, one more question. It's funny that how you started in marketing, right? Like how much does that help you? Like, because at the end of the day, you're marketing yourself, but I mean, are you helping these guys with their marketing and their brand and understanding that stuff? Because the more valuable they are, the more
that's
valuable.
where I really like made a name for myself, because when I first started, I was managing J.R. Smith, who won a championship with the Cavs and all that. So I was doing all his marketing. He was a really marketable player, and so we were very creative with our approach. So, we did like backpacks with his tattoos. When he won the championship, he wasn't wearing a shirt. We came out with T-shirts of him shirtless. We put it in 2K. We did over $3 million in T-shirt sales. We had when they won when the MLB All-Star game was in Cleveland. We had him throw out the first pitch, and the catcher was wearing his shirt. So we were being very creative with him, with his tattoos and with his personality, to really build that Swish brand, etc. He was coming in to the finals on a hoverboard. Like, we were doing all types of silly stuff. Yeah, so creativity is everything when it comes to marketing.
So an athlete, right? So number one player-wise, skill-wise, but doesn't play the game, doesn't want to get, doesn't really want to play the marketing game, doesn't, play with social media.
Let's start with thing first. Your position. If you're a center, you're not marketable.
Really? Period.
Right? So let's look at the signature shoes. Kyrie Irving, Edwards, LeBron James, Luka Doncic. Do you see any big men? Have I named any big men in there?
Right.
Jokic and B.
Shaq back in the days.
Yeah, but
Shaq's the most marketable now.
Big men are not sexy as far as you want when it comes to sneakers. Marketability is with guards, point guards. Right. Those are the guys. So, from the get-go, your position can determine your marketability from Jump Street. Like, you might not have a marketing career at all.
Right.
Now, once the position is figured out, now it's your market.
Right.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP caliber player, doesn't have his own shoe because he plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Your market now separates you even further, right? If you play for the Lakers, Malik Beasley, who's my client, he has his own shoe, and we the deal was done when he was on the Lakers. Why? Because he's on the Lakers. LeBron James. So they gave him a signature shoe. For his brand called Xstep gave him a signature shoe. So there's so many facets that you have to get filtered out to even be able to become marketable.
Right. But now what I'm really curious about is if there's a player right now, really good player, right, in high school, okay, how much does it matter that he starts playing the game, the marketable game, right? Does it get them a better? Would a college pick instead of the best player that doesn't play the marketing game at all and is not, he doesn't talk the talk, he doesn't have the personality. Will they pick the fifth player because he has a social media following, right? And he could get in front of a microphone selling jerseys mean more than scoring points. I guess that's the way to put it bluntly.
In many terms, yes, and in some instances, no. It depends on the culture. It depends on the market.
On the team.
It depends on the team. It depends on management and their vision and the things that are important to them. So, it's always a case by case basis. Some teams will look at a 16-year-old that's marketing himself and posting pictures 24/7 on Instagram as a guy who's way above his head and it's not focused on basketball, right? Versus others that will see the value in that. So.
And is there teams saying what should we have a young athlete right now that is trying to make it? What do you not post, right? Like, what do you stay away from to make sure that you're not looked at negatively? And they kind of.
I have this is my personal opinion,
yeah.
Right. So this is just my personal opinion. My mentality with the way I operate, I'm never on vacation. And I never have a day off, and I'm always working. I want my clients to always think that I'm 24/7 working. So if that means that I'm at the Satai on the beach, no one's gonna know I'm at the Satai. I'm not posting it. Right. I'm not showing it to anyone. If I go on a vacation, no one's gonna know I was there. I'm working 24/7. This is my personal opinion because as a young entrepreneur, I had to be able to. I wanted and I had to show everyone that I was mature, that I was different, and that I was locked in. And I want my clients to think that 24/7 I am dedicated to them.
But the translate to them is always doing drills, like posting stuff of them working hard.
Just focusing on your content, like focusing on your craft, right? Like just always showing that you're grinding, that you're working, that you're always in the gym. I always tell my clients, when you go to the gym at night to work out at the facility, they know when you clock in, when they clock out. They have cameras. They see all of that stuff. So it's important where, you don't just go to practice. You come in early, you leave after, and you come back at night. Those things matter. Right. Those things matter at the end of the day because while you're in the gym, they're assuming everyone else is doing something else, but you're in the gym working.
Right.
And so being able to showcase your commitment and your hard work to actually development creates that persona that you want to show. And then when you're successful and you want to, showcase what, living the lavish life and doing all those things, cool, you can have that moment. But
so if you're a high school player, college player right now, man, focus. If you're going to start posting anything, just post you working hard and staying focused. There's nothing about partying, definitely nothing about drinking, none of that stuff. Just stay focused on your craft.
Yeah, when I was in college with my partner, he posted a picture of himself holding a beer, and I remember fighting with him about it. I'm like, how can you post yourself with girls at a frat party with a beer? Like, we need people to think that we're serious, we're professional, and we're more mature. That was
at what age you told your partner?
This was when we were in college. We were just getting started.
Fuck, you could have loosened up a little bit, I guess, but I guess you were right. Yeah, last story for real now. I was in a real estate deal talking about drinking and the Jewish thing. What's this called? So I was in a meeting one time, and we were in a long conference room, and all of a sudden they stopped the meeting. They brought in a bottle of vodka,
okay,
and a fucking horn, a sheep's horn.
Okay, yeah.
And we all blew the fucking horn.
Shofar.
Right, and drank a shot of vodka. What is that?
Well, the vodka part is not part of the whole thing.
You sure?
Yeah, for sure.
They said they said something when we drank it.
I mean, they probably just said a blessing on the vodka.
Okay,
but it's
so the vodka's not part of the horn? It's not tied to the horn.
Got nothing to do with the horn.
What's the horn?
The horn is we blow the horn 30 dadays leading up to the new year.
Okay.
And it's really.
But why'd they stop the meeting for it? It was like a timing situation.
I don't know about why they stopped the meeting, but it's important to blow the horn every day leading up to the new year, just to be able to wake. Essentially, the idea is to wake up the soul.
Got it.
And to start having you self-reflect on the year that you've had and the things that you want, your ambitions for the future and what you could do to. To have for a new and better year. The vodka part is just for you to feel good. And that's about it.
Cool, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, man. It was awesome, dude.
Sir.
Thank you. It was great.
Yes, sir.